Eating disorders and insecurities run hand in hand. I know this firsthand because I used to struggle with an eating disorder as well. I just wanted to make a video about a little bit about my story and what happened and the advice that I can give to somebody that might currently be struggling. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Michaela and I help people heal their trauma and live more expansive lives. Growing up was when my insecurities started. I was about 5 years old and I just remember always being the bigger kid. I've always been the tallest in my class. Actually, looking back at pictures, I was pretty scrawny, but compared to the other kids, I was much bigger. My dad's 6'1", I'm 5'11", and we just have like a thicker frame, compared to other people. And this in me caused an insecurity growing up, thinking that I was fat or that why didn't I look like the other kids? I was just never feeling secure enough in my own body. And eventually, as I was growing up, my dad did leave, and that caused some abandonment wounds. And I always had this sense that if only I could be better, if only I looked prettier, I was smarter, if only, fill in the blank, then he would have stuck around. And this in turn kind of manifested in my relationships once I became much older. I always found relationships where the person was not very loyal to me. And so I now am 18 years old. I got pregnant with my daughter and I gained 70 pounds. And once I had my baby, I was able to lose the 70 pounds pretty quick. My boyfriend at the time kept cheating, kept talking to other women, and it crushed my soul. And so I thought that if only I was skinnier, if only I was prettier, if only I wore more makeup, I always looked done, then he would love me, because it goes back to that childhood wound of my dad leaving and thinking that if only. So I really got into diet and exercise. I was doing keto. I was doing all the different kinds of, paleo, all those diets out there that I could get my hands on to lose the weight. I lost those 70 pounds pretty easily. It wasn't too difficult for me. But the thing was that nothing was ever enough. It was never enough. I remember forcing myself into this box of having my breakfast and eating very small portions, then my snack, then my lunch, then my snack, then my dinner. And they were extremely small portions. I was super uncomfortable because I ended up working six times a week for 3 hours a day. I would run 10 miles, then I'd lift weights for about an hour and a half. And I would just be so physically drained because I wasn't treating my body right. But I was trying to force my body into these molds of what other women look like, because there's other women out there that are, naturally, they have a smaller frame than I do. And I thought that I wasn't beautiful because I didn't look like them. This eventually turned into a full-blown eating disorder for me. I was cutting as many calories as I could, and then working out as much as I could. And then eventually I started to binge, because it's kind of like the elephant in the room. If I keep telling myself that I'm not going to eat the Reese's, and I know it's there and I'm starving myself of that Reese's, then eventually for me personally, I'm just going to go and I'm going to binge on it. And it's the same exact thing as that elephant in the room. And so my binges got so severely bad, it might have started at the gas station, maybe just getting like the Reese's, eating that. And it would start a full-blown binge where I would eat everything in the pantry. I would eat everything in the fridge. And I hated myself. I remember like barely being able to like lay on one side or the other, like afraid that like my intestines literally would explode because I had just eaten so much. Like I would start sometimes, I remember one time, it was horrible, but I ate an entire baker's dozen of donuts. I dropped my boyfriend off at work at 4 a.m. and I had stopped by the donut store. My intention was to bring it to the salon and share with my coworkers, and I ended up eating every donut, and I actually had to call out of work. That's how severe my eating disorder had gotten. And then eventually I found drugs, and I found out that I didn't have to, force myself into this box anymore, that I could almost live like this normal life where everybody else was able to maybe work out, maybe not, eat if they want to, not. And drugs for me was that kind of cure. I'm not going to talk about my drug addiction too much, but that's kind of how it led my life. And this eating disorder became almost suicidal for me. And all it was based out of, looking back, it's so silly, but all it was based out of was these insecurities. We lived in San Diego at the time. I'd look at these women, that my boyfriend was also looking at, and you could tell he was getting turned on, and I would project and I would cast this hate on these women, like, oh, her butt, why does her butt look like that? Why is it hanging out of her shorts like that? She looks like a slut. And all these horrible things that I was saying about other women in my head, what I found in all of that was when I was casting that hate onto those other women, that I was actually casting hate onto my own body. I felt so shitty about the way that maybe my butt looked that I did anything in my control to project it onto her, to say that this is about her. And really at the end of the day was I felt so lame and so insecure within my own body that the only way that it could come out was by projecting that hate onto her. My first point that I wanted to make with this video is when we cast hate and we feel insecure and we're saying, oh my gosh, why do her arms look like that? Oh, she doesn't look as good as me. Or all this drama in our head about casting hate on another individual is actually saying that we don't feel secure enough in our own bodies to be able to love and cherish beauty in the world. We are not the only beautiful ones in this world. And when we start to kind of see like, dang, I am casting that hate onto that woman, what does that say about my body? And really, if you're a law of attractioner, you manifest, when we are casting that hate on those other women, we are actually creating this negative energy field, which brings us further away from what we actually want, which is maybe that we want our bodies to look a certain way. In my experience, what I had to learn was to stop fitting myself into these boxes. Like I had said, I am a bigger frame. I'm not that typical skinny girl they used for the models. I was always put in the back because I was tall in dance and in any school event, and that made me feel so crappy. And I thought, if only I could look like them. And really what it came down to was learning to stop fitting myself into those boxes and really starting to appreciate Michaela for who Michaela is, and to love my body anyways. When I look at my body today, I see that I have these beautiful curves. I have good hips. I have good arms. It's just a little bit different than what society says that we need to look like. And I started to really feed that I actually am beautiful. It's just not the way that I thought that I should look, right? During my eating disorder, I was introduced to the book called Intuitive Eating, and this totally revolutionized my life. And it introduced me to the fact that when we starve ourselves, it's like the elephant in the room, where we actually cause more of this desire, and it's naturally in our biology to binge. If we starve ourselves, back in the day when we were foragers, we used to, whenever we find a fig tree, we would eat all the figs off that tree because we didn't know the next time that would eat. Now you fast forward to life here, and food is so easily accessible in our pantry. So therefore we do binge when we starve ourselves. And so what it taught was that our bodies are naturally trying to heal itself, and we are going to crave whatever that our bodies are lacking. So if you're craving milk, maybe it's the vitamin D in the milk that you actually need. And instead of rejecting that your body is trying to tell you, wait, I need this today. And a lot of these diets and stuff, it's actually teaching us to repress that and to almost use our brains to overpower our bodies. But our bodies are always trying to heal us. They talk about in the book, there's an example about this little boy, 3-year-old, and if you were to lay out a feast of all sorts of chocolates and maybe some meats and olives and pickles and do like a full charcuterie board and maybe some breads and all that, maybe throw a meatloaf, like everything, anything you could imagine being at this table, and there was just a shot of olive oil. If that little boy was lacking fats, then he would pick up the olive oil and drink that, no problem. Because at 3 years old, he didn't learn that he was supposed to eat this with this. He just was so naturally in tune with his body that he knew that his body needed that olive oil and he might drink it. I am sure you guys might have heard stories about some kids eating butter. Maybe that's what their body needed. It was the fat content. So intuitive eating basically taught me how to get back to homeostasis. In the beginning, it was scary because I was eating a bunch of chocolate and a bunch of sugar and carbs and stuff like that. And over the years, instead of having these highs and lows, I literally have started to plane out like that. And my body is the healthiest that it's ever been. Not the skinniest, but you can tell that I just glow a different way because I'm not starving myself and trying to fit myself into something that I'm not supposed to be. The great thing about intuitive eating is that I not only eat my vegetables, I eat vegetables all the time. I try to make sure that it's in every meal. And at the same time, when it's my daughter's birthday, I allow myself to eat the cake. My daughter and I get to be present together, and I get to eat the cake and not worry about the calories that it's gonna, go all to my ass. Instead, I get to be present and enjoy the food because food brings families together. That's the big event at parties and family gatherings, Christmases, holidays, And so when we are so afraid, it actually takes us away from the present moment. What is the fun in that? Intuitive eating taught me to stop fitting myself into another box and instead to put that energy within myself. Aaron Doughty talks about this technique, the frame technique, and basically it's a meditation. I recommend looking it up, but it's about lighting a flame. So it's an open eye meditation, and when you breathe in, you focus on the distance between you and the flame, and when you breathe out, you focus your energy onto your body. And what this does is it creates separation between you and other people. And if you practice this regularly and long enough, what happens is that energy starts to shift. Instead of trying to seek validation from everybody from without, like outside, you start to put that energy back onto yourself and you start to validate and listen to your own body. And this is when you get to start to act from a place of being genuine and actually doing things that are more in alignment with yourself, rather than forcing yourself to be somebody or look a certain way or whatever it is that you do. Another thing was yoga for me. Like I said, I used to run 10 miles a day, didn't matter how my body felt, lift weights, and then just really make myself sick to the point of like making myself hypoglycemic. And I eventually started doing yoga, and it taught me to really listen to my body. Some days I'm going to want to go out and defeat the world, and I'm going to work out really hard doing my yoga practice. And then there's other days that I am so drained that doing a practice like that seems horrible. And when I do like a yoga nidra instead, where I relax and maybe I do the yin yoga where it's just like these easy stretches and I get in center with my body, what happens is it brings me back to homeostasis too. It helps me energetically and emotionally to not have those binges, to not get in these emotional fits that causes me stress. Instead, my body is really trying to get me to a healthy weight. It's trying to get me to a healthy emotional state. It's my resistance to it. It's these thoughts that oh, I shouldn't eat this way, oh, I need to work out this way, that actually creates more chaos and drama in our lives. Yoga has really taught me to put that energy back onto myself. I sometimes will still get insecure to this day about the yoga teacher. She looks great, her body is amazing, and what does that say about my body? But the other thing about yoga is becoming aware of those thoughts. Why do I think like that? And to, just become aware. And in like a lot of my videos, I talk about not getting attached to those ideas or those thoughts, and instead allowing it to be there and allowing it to pass. And I just learned to put that energy back into myself. And when I practice yoga regularly, it carries out into every area of my life. I am a better surfer because of it. I am better at hiking. My stability is a lot better. It overpours into my life. And as a result of it, I have a great body, and I don't have to fit myself into having to work out in a certain way that isn't even comfortable for my lifestyle. Today, I get to be present with my daughter, and we get to go on hikes if we want to together. And if we want to stay home and have a lazy day, I allow myself to have that time and I become present. Whereas before, when I struggled with that eating disorder, all I cared about was working out and the way that I looked. Eating disorders are based out of trauma usually. I see a lot of either abandonment or sexual trauma. And it's really difficult in the beginning with eating disorders to think that I have to just let all this go and to not worry about so much about how my body looks, because this eating disorder didn't start just at once. It started over a long period of time, and it's gotten to this point to where it's probably become like a full-blown obsession at this point. So to just say don't care about how your body looks it almost seems impossible in the beginning. And what I learned is when I tackled that trauma, when I started working with a therapist and I cried and I screamed and I threw pillows and I did what I had to do, those healing modalities to help myself through those traumas that were based in my childhood, I now no longer look to starve myself. I no longer look to overeat. It really is that trauma work. When we start to let go of all these different ideas that came based out of our childhood of how I'm not worthy, that I need to look a certain way in order to get the love and validation, working on that part of everything, then I get to be present for life. And shedding those traumas has been so dire for releasing my eating disorder. So if you're not currently working with some type of therapist or coach, that's something that has really revolutionized my life. It's a lot easier said from the other side, being somebody that's already been through the process of healing up until this point. I think that therapist kind of bridges the gap between healing, like where you are in an eating disorder, and that healing part. And my last tip is to become unapologetically you. When you aren't your authentic self, you're actually doing the world a disservice. The world needs more people to speak out about what you're going through and be the body that you were meant to be. If you believe in law of attraction, if you believe in manifestation, and that everything happens for a reason, then why would you be put in a body that is not the idea of society's? You were meant to be you because you are so genuine and so beautiful. And instead of your authenticity is what makes you shine, not the way that you fit yourself into this box, but who are you really? And allow that to shine. And when you allow that to shine, you in turn magnetize those relationships. Like if this eating disorder is based out of not feeling worthy, that you need to be a certain way in order to fit in or to be loved or to get what you want, when you practice that authenticity of being your genuine self and letting your body be who it is, you draw everything to you. Things start to unfold for you when you speak your authentic truth and you start doing things that are more in alignment with you rather than what's in alignment with the world and society. It always evens out when you put that energy back onto yourself and allow yourself to be who you are, not who you think you need to be. Today, I get to be more present for life rather than having to struggle with that eating disorder. And really, what had to happen was letting go of these old ideas of trying to be someone that I wasn't, living more with authenticity with yourself. You start to experience a life that's beyond your wildest dreams. So if this resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. That way you know when I upload another video. Can't wait to see you in one of my next videos. Bye.